Good evening, everybody, and is there an echo in here? Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Eastern Planning. Welcome members and welcome members in the public gallery also. My name is Penny Rivers and I chair this committee. I hear that Councillor Cossa has another meeting at 7 o'clock, so please keep your statements brief and to the point. That's all right. We have two speakers tonight, so welcome. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Leila, are there any?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Sadler, Councillor Wilson and Vice Chair Councillor Else.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, minutes of the last meeting. Are you happy that these that the minutes are correct? Thank you. Questions from members of the public, Leila, are there any?
None received.
And questions by members, are there any?
None received.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6, any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation? Kim, would you like to help us?
Thank you, Chair. We have an update. As members will be aware, we are pleased to be able to confirm that the Local Plan Part 2 was adopted by full council last night and now forms a statutory part of the development plan along with Local Plan Part 1. Policies on the 2002 Local Plan therefore fall away at this point. With regards to the item on tonight's agenda, the adoption of Part 2 is anticipated and your update sheets reflect the changes to policy. Please note that the adoption of Part 2 does not alter the recommendation or main consideration significantly in this instance, and the relevant policies and the proposed conditions would be updated to reflect the new Part 2 policies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we move to agenda item number 8, applications and subject to public speaking. And the first one is Milford Hospital on Chewsley Lane in Godalming. So Kim, I think Tracy is not well, so you're going to be addressing this one for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. This application is for the erection of a single-storey healthcare facility with link corridor to existing building, construction of an access service road, provision of additional car parking, the erection of an electricity substation and associated works at Milford Hospital on Chewsley Lane. This is the location plan. The blue line indicates the location of the wider hospital, the land associated with that, and the red line here indicates the site application to which this application relates. This is an aerial photograph of the site. So we have the existing hospital building shown here, and the application site is largely in this area here, with the car parking area here, and the access proposed of Chewsley Lane about here. And the block plan shows the access point of Chewsley Lane here. We have 2 listed building, 2 cottages opposite the proposed access on Chewsley Lane. We have the access road moving through the site, which will result in the removal of 12 trees, as well as the trees being removed for the building itself. And we have the new facility here. The new facility is proposed to be a diagnostic centre that will include the addition of an MRI and CT scanner facility for this hospital. The proposed parking spaces are shown in this location, 18 parking spaces. And there's additional land shown within the site edged red for the provision of further landscaping and compensatory tree planting. The electricity substation is shown just up in the top corner here by Cherville Close. So some photographs of the site. Number 1 is the view of the site from the proposed building from the existing car park associated with Milford Hospital. The building you can see in the background is the existing Milford Hospital. You can see the landscaped boundaries to the north. Photograph number 2 is stood from the front of the existing Milford Hospital building looking south towards the car park and Chewsley Lane. Photograph 3 is the view of the site looking north. You can see just glimpses of the residential development in Chervil Close just through the trees, and landscaping within the site just here. Photo 4 is a view looking north along Chewsley Lane. These are listed buildings just indicated here, and the proposed site access would be just opposite. Photo 5 is a direct view straight onto the site of the proposed access, about here. And photo 6 is a photo of the properties in Chervil Close, just on the other side, excuse me, of the landscape barrier and landscaping boundary. The proposed elevations of the diagnostics facility, the extension to the hospital, shows a barreled roof design. And this is the proposed elevations in context with the existing hospital building. So this is the existing building here, and this is the proposed development here. Moving on to the sections, this is just wanted to show these because it's relevant, because the building will be sunk down slightly to reduce the height of the building. And shows the context with the existing hospital building as well. Sorry, I seem to be losing my voice. The proposed floor plans, on the southern part, we have the sort of pinky colour is the MRI scanner facility. Have the more purple area, which is the CT scan. The blue areas of staff, and the yellow areas are for patient moving corridors and such like. And the green is for mechanical and electrical equipment. And some 3D viewpoints of the proposal, the glazed entrance and the barreled roof. And the key issues, the site is within the green belt and is inappropriate development in the green belt, given it doesn't fall within any of the exceptions in paragraph 149 of the MPPF. We also have heritage assets opposite the proposed access, and the heritage officer has identified less than substantial harm to those listed buildings, given the impact the proposed access would have on the setting of those listed buildings. We have the impact on trees, because the proposal would result in the loss of 12 trees, but there is a condition proposed whereby the compensatory tree planting would be secured. We also have biodiversity conditions. So Surrey Wildlife Trust have no objection to the scheme, subject to a condition to secure ecological enhancements on the site. The County Highway Authority have no objection. They're satisfied that the parking is provided, the access and highway safety is acceptable. The other considerations include the significant public benefits arising from the proposed diagnostics facility at the site. And officers have set out the assessment in the report, including impact on neighbours' amenity. There's no adverse impacts to, there's no adverse impact on neighbour amenity in that regard. And also we have come to the conclusion that the significant public benefits just constitute very special circumstances that would override the harm arising to the greenbelt, heritage assets and the loss of trees at the site, individually and together. And for the reasons set out in the report, this application is recommended for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kim. And so now we come to public speaking. Speakers, you have 4 minutes. So first I invite Ms. Ekendale to speak.
Oh, my 4 minutes. Good evening. My name is Falake Ekundayo, and I'm the senior architect and associate at Drake and Kanema Chartered Surveyors based here in Godalming, here for the past 43 years. We lead the design team that conceived, designed, and developed this project to this stage. And I sit here in support of this application as the agent and on behalf of the applicant, the Royal Surrey Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust. Now, we wish to talk about the architectural merit of this building itself, along with its sustainability credentials to the built environment, using the 3 Ps we call it, which is sustainable development to protect the people, the property, and the planet. The people, in line with government initiatives for more diagnostic hubs around the country, this proposed facility for MRI and CT scanning shall complement the existing X-ray unit on site and support the Royal Surrey's plans to provide early diagnosis and improve the prospect of better long-term outcomes and prognosis for people. Property. The proposed MRI center is a bespoke high-tech building in the Greenbelt. The design was inspired by the country barn. The barrel roof with its curvilinear profile reflect the rural vernacular of farm buildings. The tongue and groove effect rain screen cladding and the stone effect boards respect the surrounding architectural styles as seen in the neighboring buildings and the 3-story townhouses around Sycamore Avenue. Acoustic fencing around the service yard will absorb noise emitted by the mechanical plant. And the wild thicket between the hospital and Chisley Lane will become a managed woodland with new native trees, which will provide screening from the road. Our intention is to give Milford Hospital a beautiful building that complements its surrounding without any compromise on healthcare provision. Planet. The barrel roof is made of zinc. Architectural zinc is 95% recyclable and with a durability of at least 100 years. It is therefore a well-established knowledge of as a sustainable product. The walls are clad entirely in rock wool, which is made from non-depletable volcanic rock and recycled material. It's naturally fireproof, durable, and recyclable with a built-in resistance to humidity. Other components are manufactured off-site by UK suppliers, thereby reducing the carbon footprint on the environment. 2 car charging points for electrical vehicles and a bicycle store are proposed. Sustainable drainage is proposed as a natural approach to manage drainage around the development. I now add 1 more P, process. This is the building in construction and in use. During the construction phase, a traffic management plan will regulate construction, delivery, pedestrian and emergency circulation to and through the site, I beg your pardon. In use, the new service road will keep refuse and maintenance vehicles away from the residential estate. As an outpatient facility, attendance will be by appointment. Parking for patients and staff will be fully managed by the trust and restricted to the designated area to stop it being used as an ad hoc basis. Milford Diagnostic Center is a building that we believe everyone will be proud of, and we hope we have addressed any concerns you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I call on Councillor Richard Seaborn.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see this application for a potentially valuable addition to health facilities in Waverley coming forward for determination after 15 months of review, amendment and evaluation. Speaking as the ward member, one of the ward members, I called this item to committee in agreement with my fellow ward member, Councillor Darcy, on the back of a significant number of objections from residents of the adjacent Leithfield Park development and the former staff cottages, these particularly dating from when the development was first submitted. The aspects of concern that appeared most frequently in the objections are access, parking, harm to the existing tree cover and noise. I've been through all the neighbour and parish council comments in detail and conclude that the officer report effectively assesses the concerns and weighs them up in relation to the undoubted benefits of the new facility, which is set out in letters of support, which include input from Hambledon, Wickley and Busbridge parish councils. So in my view, this evening, the role of the committee is to be comfortable that the adjustments to the initial proposals, when considered in conjunction with the conditions proposed by officers, do adequately address the concerns around access, parking, noise and tree cover. The impact of access was initially a major concern to residents of Sycamore Avenue, but as far as I can see, the vast majority of users of the new facility will arrive by car and will enter and leave using the new access created from Chewsley Lane. Parking's always going to be a moot point. Residents in Leithfield Park and the staff cottages are heavily reliant on the use of cars, and so they value secure parking, which is at best described, I would describe as adequate, but not excessive in their developed areas. So they've got good reason to be concerned that users of Milford Hospital might park outside the hospital curtilage. The plan creates additional formal parking within the hospital curtilage, and so there's a judgment to be made around adequacy. I suspect that it is adequate, but that is one of the things that members have to weigh up and see if they're happy with. The loss of trees is unfortunate, but the replacement planting scheme is proposed. And if it's carried out in accordance with conditions 8, 9 and 10, then the provision of new trees, as long as they thrive, will satisfy this aspect. But again, it's a judgment. Are members comfortable that the new tree planting will leave the environment suitably screened and replace the damage done by taking down trees? And then finally, there's the issue of noise, and that's difficult to be certain about. Although noise is not likely to be a widespread issue, it only needs to be excessive for 1 or 2 of the properties in Cherville Close and the staff cottages for sustained misery to be created. The noise impact has been carefully assessed and the indications are that it should not be an issue. But again, it remains a judgment, so it will be good if the committee take a look at that. Overall, I believe the objections have been assessed and issues addressed in the plans before you. So on balance, I believe the benefits offered by the new facility justify approval. But there are issues for the committee to be comfortable with, and I'm happy to hand it over to you to look at those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Seaborn. So members, the floor is yours. Councillor Cosso.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have to say, when I first heard a little while ago about the development that was going on around this proposal, I was pretty excited actually, because Milford Hospital is something that has been treasured and fought for a long time in our local communities. And I guess there's probably not many of us who haven't been there to visit someone or go and have an X-ray or something of that kind. But it's always felt that somehow the place was a bit under threat because it doesn't do a tremendous amount and a bit ramshackle and so on. And when I heard that there was a proposal for a diagnostic centre there, as I say, I was really quite excited and thrilled, because there is such a need for that facility nationally and locally. And again, I will be very surprised if there are many people who haven't got a friend, relative or something who has been referred for a scan of some kind and has had to wait interminable lengths of time. So if we can increase the capacity, have something local and secure our facility at Milford, that will be wonderful. That's the background. But of course, niggling away at the back of my mind was, well, I do hope when this eventually emerges, as I hope it will, at the planning committee, that there is nothing significant that would force us in doing our job to reject the proposal. I'm pleased to say that, you know, as I'm sure like every other member, I've read very carefully the concerns that have been expressed. And of course, it's in the green belt. I have to say, I've always had a bit of a different view about those greenbelt sites that, you know, right in the middle of the opening field somewhere, and things that are already part of existing developments. And this is clearly the latter. Having said that, I understand that under the framework, harm has to be identified, but the very special circumstances, I think, by far outweigh it. I'm not unsympathetic to some of the concerns that have been expressed around possible noise and things of that kind. But I think our officers have done an excellent job in addressing those in this paper. I'm very satisfied with the explanations and responses that they've given, and I shall certainly be supporting this proposal unless any of my colleagues persuades me there is a really overriding reason that I missed somewhere down the line. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cossett. Councillor Darcy.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I tend to agree that this is a development which has many benefits for the local community, and that there are a number of concerns which have been expressed by various parties. But I wanted to focus on two in particular, which is based on the very recently passed Local Plan Part 2, Policy DM1, Environmental Implications of Development. There are two particular ones. One is about avoiding exacerbating climate change by minimizing greenhouse gases. I was slightly disappointed that there wasn't really anything I could find regarding attempts to do that. I'm not saying they're not trying to do it. I'm just saying I couldn't find any specific information about that. So that was slightly disappointing. I appreciate that using the equipment they are using, they're going to be producing huge amounts of emissions indirectly through electricity, but it still they still could make sure that the development itself is as energy efficient as possible. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is regarding the mitigation hierarchy for biodiversity, which is part G of DM1, where it talks about 10% net gain. I note in the email that SWT say that the LPA cannot require the applicant to provide a 10% measurable gain in biodiversity units. So my first question is, I wonder why they would think this, given that the NPPF, the Environmental Act, and our own policies require a net gain of 10%. So that's my first question. I then go on. I note that the Wildlife Trust have asked us to secure a condition for a biodiversity enhancement and mitigation plan, which is condition 5. However, they do all have some caveats about that. They would advise that it should demonstrate how the woodland will be enhanced to provide gains for biodiversity, and it should confirm the appropriateness of the tree planting. Currently, there's no information on the compensation and enhancement prior to determination. So that's a concern, because we shouldn't really determine things unless we have full information. However, I'm sure that the BEMP, when produced, will be as good as it can be. The only concern I would have about that is that I'm not sure who's going to be looking at it, who's going to be evaluating it to make sure that it does meet the requirements that the Surrey Wildlife Trust suggested it should. So that's another question. And then with regard to the 3 conditions on landscaping, that's 8, 9, and 10. These are about the replacement of the trees. They make no mention of the biodiversity aspect of the trees, and they don't link it to the selection, planting, and management that should be within the BEMP. So given it's acknowledged that the woodland on site constitutes a priority habitat, the tree planting is acting as compensation for its loss, I think there needs to be recognition within those conditions that they should be linked to the BEMP. So what I'm basically asking for is that we should include in the BEMP the phrase "as compensation for loss of a priority habitat," that we should indicate that some net gain would be expected up to a minimum of 10%, and that we should link the 3 conditions on tree planting to the BEMP so that the trees that are planted are subject to the biodiversity enhancements and part of that scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darcy. Kim and Chris, who's going to answer?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Darcy, for covering that point in terms of net gain. We've looked quite carefully about this, and condition 5 at the moment goes as far as we're able to do in terms of securing net gain. I note the 10% requirement, but that is as required by the Environment Act. So that would bite once the Environment Act secondary legislation is caught up. I believe it's November we're looking at the moment. So towards the end of this year will be when that section will bite. In terms of taking the tree loss into account as part of the requirements under condition 5, I don't think that would cause any issue. That would be part of that net assessment, and the Wildlife Trust would be who we would consult on the submission. So we would consult on it and have it reviewed. Thank you.
So can I propose that we amend the condition to reflect that the tree planting should be part of the BEMP?
Is that agreed? You're seconding. Is that agreed? So the next speaker is Councillor Follows, followed by Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, can I say it's so refreshing to see somebody speaking on this, referring to the 3 Ps in the presentation. I've been wanting to see somebody do that for 4 years, so that was nice. I was, by some fluke, asked by a resident on an entirely different matter if I would walk down the length of Chewsley Lane with him the other day, and I was doing so half listening to the budget at the same time, so it was an interesting walk, as you can imagine. I'm the county councillor also for Godalming South, Milford and Whitley, and the first sort of third of Chewsley Lane is within my county division. I think the rest is with you, Kevin, over the border. It has about 90 potholes down there. It's got significant issues when you go past the section owned by the Angling Society bit. It's got flooding down through part of it. Some of the actual carriageway is exceptionally uneven down about halfway through. There are issues on that. I think all of this project is excellent, and particularly do second though the comments from Councillor Darcy, but it will increase some journeys. I don't think it's going to increase it very much, and I think by far and away, I mean, we sit here often complaining that there isn't any infrastructure being built, and actually it's great, we're actually seeing some NHS infrastructure being built. So I absolutely think this is fantastic and we should be supporting it. I just wanted to clarify with officers, is there anything here that extends to the maintenance or repair or any kind of improvement to Chewsley Lane whatsoever, which to me seems to be one of the worst roads in the entire borough by some measure. I'm okay. I'm going to get arguments from Cranley, particularly. I get Cranley in the East are going to go nuts with that comment. Certainly one of the worst I've seen recently. Shall we go that far? Yeah. Is there anything in here that goes to the maintenance of the primary highways access to the site, which is Chewsley Lane?
Thank you, Councillor Foss. No, there isn't anything as part of this scheme that would improve that road, but as I say, the County Highway Authority have been consulted, and if there was a impact on it, then we would expect there to have been something secured at that. And when I say an impact, I mean a significant impact. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair, I mean, I was obviously frustrated to see no comment from the County Highways Authority on this one whatsoever, as usual. It baffles me they've not asked for a single penny of anything to attempt to do something about this road. I have to, as always, concede that if the County Authority have said that they have no objections with this, I obviously can't raise any objections that will stick either. But I think I will certainly be asking the Cabinet Member for Highways and any other relevant individuals who might be in earshot as to why the county aren't asking for anything when these sorts of things come up. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Follows. Could you slightly be straying from the point, do you think? Possibly.
Meandering.
Councillor Gale, and then Councillor Denis and Councillor Goodridge. So, and then Councillor Townsend. So Councillor Gale, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I was contacted by the same person as Councillor Follows recently. We saw this come before Parish Council a while back, actually. And one of the main concerns was highways, because Milford takes an awful lot of traffic. It comes through Milford for Station Lane towards Chewsley Lane. And of course, we all know there are heavy goods vehicles travelling that route. And we've got possibly a development halfway up Station Lane one day. So that was one of our main concerns being in the villages. But we were quite welcome that it's appointments only. So really it is restricted to the number of people that will be visiting the site. So I think we were quite pleased that it wasn't just an open for all type of facility. I think this is a welcome addition to Milford Hospital. That hospital's been under threat for so long of closure, and this is only going to add to it being kept in the facilities that we need. It also reduces the weight of anything on the Royal Surrey and reduces the number of car travels from the south of the county all the way up to the Royal Surrey. And it's going to help with waiting times. And as Councillor Costa said, we all know people that have waited so long for scans. This can only be a bonus. And I just hope the lady explaining how it's been done is kind to the environment. And it's not too much of an imposition on the people living in the new facilities there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gale. Councillor Denis.
Thank you very much. Glad to see Councillor Follows is out walking, doing his 10,000 steps. I'm sure he's reported all of those potholes, and I look forward to seeing that. So yeah, I'll give him the link to report it. I think Highways Authority have said no objection subject to conditions. I mean, obviously they look at safety, not whether there's potholes or, you know, and if they don't feel there's a safety issue, and they'll look at data of accidents and everything else, it is a very, very difficult one. And I don't think it's usual practice ever to get money for maintenance of highways. They can get it for highways changes and safety measures, but not for those type of issues. It'd be lovely. A lot of the points I was going to raise, Councillor Darcy has raised, so I won't repeat what he says, other than when we talk about trees being replaced, it's one of my bugbears that when you look at the ones that have been replaced, I have to put my glasses on because I can't actually see them. Yeah, they're about 2 inches high. If you're not careful, you'll walk straight over them. So I would really like that condition, or whether it's informative, that these aren't twigs, these are proper trees. So it doesn't take 30 years for them to grow, you know, to a reasonable height. And I just think developers sometimes go for the very, very cheap option. I do feel sorry for the people living in Chewsley Lane with the additional numbers of cars. And unfortunately, I'm sure it's going to make the road even worse, because the more cars you go down in these lanes, unfortunately, the more damage that will be caused. But I think I agree with everybody else. I can't think of any planning grounds to attach anything to say no. I just hope that when they do all the trees and the environmental stuff, they do it properly and not a half job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Denis. Councillor Goodrich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is an exciting project, and I'm delighted that Milford Hospital are going to hopefully have this extra facility. I mean, I just wanted to talk about highways and parking. On highways, we've heard about the Chewsley Lane traffic calming measures that the county have provided, namely potholes. But I suppose in the same way as the development around the hospital, people were encouraged to use Station Road rather than coming along Chewsley Lane from Godalming. The same would apply here. And if people are coming from some distance from Guildford, for example, they're likely to come off the A3 and then to Milford and down Station Road, I would have thought. Coming to parking, clearly we don't have guidelines for how many parking spaces you need for 2 MRI scanners and 1 CT scanner. It's probably a little bit too much detail that we don't go into. But it seems to me that you're going to have 3 patients at a time. You're going to have the next lot waiting, so that makes 6, and maybe another one waiting, Mate 9. They're all going to come, each patient is probably going to come in one car. So that's 9 spaces you're going to need for patients, which leaves another 9 for staff and other people. And it seems to me, using one's best judgment, that 18 parking spaces does seem to me to be adequate. And therefore, I'm very happy to support this application, because I think I agree with the report. I agree with, in particular, with the special or very special circumstances which should come into effect on this application, and therefore I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodridge. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, as with the rest of the members, you know, it's an exciting project, and also secures the future, I think, of Milford Hospital as well. I've just got a few things to say. One is that I don't know whether any solar panels have been included in the design, but I am a bit disappointed in any of the energy. If we are looking at Planet, we shouldn't be building any large buildings like this, especially not buildings that are basically, you know, for the public, that don't have ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, you know, that have solar panels. And I'm aware that this is an energy hungry building, and I would have hoped that some generation on site. And I would encourage, you know, if anywhere there's any way to, I know we can't do it now, but, you know, encourage the builders, if they are really keen about sustainability, then to look at, you know, some ways of energy generation. So that's a really, you know, disappointing, to be honest, in this day and age. I'm also, I mean, the parking, I'm not quite with Councillor Goodridge. I think, you know, I think it may need more, and there is a risk of parking perhaps overspilling from the site. I think that one of the things that I wondered as well is if the parking surface for the car park is going to be semi-permeable or permeable, because, you know, I think that, again, that will create quite a bit of runoff from that parking area being increased. And I don't think it's a, you know, I can't remember the size of it at the moment, but I remember looking online, and it does increase it quite considerably. I'm not even sure if it's tarmacked at the moment, but, you know, again, I would like to see that permeable paving, and I would like to, if we can include that in any condition, I would like that included, because that will also help with you know, their SUDs and surface water drainage. So if we can put that into a condition, that would be really, really appreciated. I do think that I agree about all that's been said about the trees, and I just wondered whether or not when we get in the plan, especially for the trees, whether or not that will automatically be run past our tree officer here. It will be, thank you. I did think that. I don't know whether we need to be more explicit in the condition, but I think that's okay with your say so here. The only other thing that really is condition 14, where we talk about the parking and construction. I just wonder whether we ought to make it clearer that we want in point A that it should be construction on site, because it would be awful if we have loads of, you know, contractors parking along Chewsley Lane there. And I think, you know, as much as I know that we can't stop people parking on a public highway, but as long as we can try and encourage people, if we could add the word on site in parking, that would be much appreciated. I'm sure I've got a second for that. Oh, sure. Yeah, happy to second, thank you. I think that's my points made. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about the parking perhaps overspilling onto Chewsley Lane, and whether there's anything that can be, you know, done there at all, whether or not it's a double yellow lines at least, or encouraging highways to put double yellow lines near the entrance so that people don't park, because it will make it quite difficult to turn into it otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, in terms of controlling off-site, that's, you know, particularly difficult. I think the best way that you can encourage during the construction is, as you said, to put on sites within the condition 14. And in terms of the permeability of the parking area, We've got condition 6, which is the SUDS condition, and that would be reviewed by the lead local flood authority, and that would include details of drainage from both the building and any areas of parking as well. So so it would be covered in that.
Can we make it a bit more explicit? Can we say about because it is a large area and the risk is it will just be tarmacked otherwise if we're not a bit, I mean, obviously it will be subject to approval by the lead local flood authority, but if we can put it within the condition 6 somewhere,
So it shall include.
we could put something like permeable paving or something.
Thank you, Chair. We can make it clear that that will include both buildings and the parking areas.
Area.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have Councillor Reid and then Councillor Cossa. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. I'm following on for Councillor Townsend. I totally agree. And I had written here tarmac ! And the solar panels. That is a little bit of a disappointment, if not more. I commend the architects. And I think it's a very lovely design. So well done for that. And I applaud the use of materials and the fact that you've looked at the countryside and the barns, and you know that is commendable. I just want to talk about the parking as well, because there will be an appointment system for these scans, which are important. I'm very concerned about the environment. So basically, I agree that there are very special circumstances. I would like to say something about the EV charging. Basically, Southern Electric have a duty to provide electricity, not only to the hospital, but also to maybe another substation on site to provide enough electricity for EV charging. And I read, I think in the documents that it would be the minimum of 2, but I think, you know, we need perhaps a few more. So if you'd look at that, please, and you know, it's a concern really. The concern of the hospital that other people might be charging, I doubt it, because I've got an electric car and I can charge on a 13-amp plug, which only costs me an extra 5% in VAT, whereas, you know, if they're using something other than at their home, the people who may want to charge would be charging with a VAT of 20%. I just want to make that clear that, you know, we do need EV chargers. And, you know, there is no fear at all in it when under the duty of Southern Electric to provide that. I just want to say that I support everything that Councillor Darcy has said. And I want to reiterate that we are disappointed that an awful lot of these planning applications forget about climate change. And it's very sad about, you know, all the trees mature. I know that there are no TPOs, tree protection orders on a lot of these trees, or any of them, but I should have thought that a blue cedar would have merited that designation. So it's a bit of a disappointment there. And in that way, I agree with Councillor Denis that perhaps more mature trees which can be brought in could be planted, you know, the ones in huge sacks that could grow quite quickly and would enhance the environment and the landscape. I was also disappointed to see that an awful lot of the original trees would have to be cut down. And I thought maybe Councillor Darcy would say something, or Councillor Townsend would say something about bat roosting, because that's another, you know, you forgot that one, yes.
I've got one final point. Yes, I'm thinking about what all the neighbours are going to have to put up with, because you don't mind if it's the last house in your group of houses. I'm thinking of Chervil Close particularly, but it is going to be a nuisance for those residents. So I think there's something called what is it called? A KEMP, which is restricting development to certain hours in the day and certain hours at weekends, or no work at weekends. I think I would like to put that to our planning people to insist on that for the benefit of the neighbours, who will have to put up with quite a considerable amount of noise, maybe dust, traffic movements, and restrict the access to and the building time to sociable hours and none at weekends. So I'd like to put that forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I just have to speak for myself for a moment, as well as the possible adverse impacts on neighbours. Of course, there is a very special benefit should they be wanting a scan at midnight on a Sunday. We have Councillor Costa, we also have Councillor Denis, but I just want to remind Councillor, and then Councillor Townsend for another one. It's 10 to 7, Councillor Costa.
I have to tell you, Chair, that actually what I said was I want the meeting to go on at least until 7, because my meeting is until 7:30, so you must listen more carefully. I just wanted, based on what I've heard, to just add a couple of personal reflections based on my own experiences about both parking and access. So far as the access is concerned, I happen to have a daughter who lives in the new development that was built on the site there and so on. So I travel this area at least once daily, and if the grandchildren aren't terribly well, probably a lot more than once daily. Now, the quickest route from my house is to come down Station Road, whip across up Holloway Hill, Tuesley Lane and so on. But 9 times out of 10, and I know Councillor Gow's going to hate to hear this, I don't use that route. I actually go into Milford and I come down through Milford. And I know a lot of people who do the same, because that road with its single track, not to mention the potholes and so on, is something that is a very unpleasant route to use. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that. Councillor Gale may have to worry about some extra cars coming through Milford. I understand that. But of course, when that new development was built, there were some very successful traffic calming, and related measures put in, which makes that a reasonable route to travel. So I genuinely don't think that we should worry too much about access, because a lot of locals will know that. And those who are not local are just as likely, in fact, more likely, in my view, to be coming off the A3 and coming in that way. So just to put some perspective on that. So far as parking is concerned, I know this isn't particularly scientific, but I can only say on those occasions that I've actually had to go onto the site for medical or visit reasons or things of that kind, I have yet failed to park and had to park outside the hospital site. And in those circumstances, I do think probably there's some capacity. And when you bear in mind the numbers of people in the appointment system others have already referred to, yeah, you can never say that there's not going to be a bit of a problem from time to time. But I do think we mustn't over exaggerate that. And I can't see that there's going to be a major problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be really, really quick. Can we have an informative for the builders to sign up for the Considerate Constructor scheme? We talk about the impact. So let's get them to sign up. And at least then we've got some guidelines and we've got a framework that they should be working to, and the way that they deal with the residents. So whether it's better to be an informative or condition, I'm happy to propose if that's needed. If not, an informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're happy to add that as an informative. Thank you.
Townsend, did Councillor Denis say what you were going to say?
No, but I said a little bit of what I was going to ask for that as well. But equally, it was Councillor Reid reminded me about the bats, which I did check, and they did say that they hadn't found any roosts there, but obviously it may be a foraging area other than that. But it did actually call to mind though about the lighting, and I know lighting was mentioned somewhere within one of the environmental documents online, and I don't think we've got a condition for any lighting. Would that be within the or would that be within one of the reports? Because it would be good to have. It is quite, you know, you wouldn't want to put really strong lighting there because that might affect neighbours. And having had quite a few problems myself on some of the new developments in Cranley with lighting, especially on the edge of the village, I do think that perhaps it is worth mentioning having lighting that is wildlife friendly and, you know, pointing downwards as opposed to up into the sky. And so as well as the lighting, within the construction transport management plan, Councillor Coss was speaking about the way in there. Would there have to be a preferred route for large construction traffic, bearing in mind the little roads around there? And would it be, would you be able to say not to go through particular areas as part of that? Perhaps you need to talk to the local councillor about that, but there may be roads which may be better to have, because I imagine some of this construction will be quite large lorries being involved. So lighting and construction, which is condition 14.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of adding about the routing for construction, we've got condition 14, which is the construction transport management plan, and sometimes that is asked for by the highway authority, but in this instance it looks like it wasn't deemed necessary, potentially due to the scale of the development. But if we wanted to put it on there, then that detail would be submitted and would be consulted with the highway authority.
I would like, if possible, to put that on there, because you know it may just give the people living around there as well a little bit more reassurance.
In terms of a lighting condition, it's a similar situation where the Wildlife Trust haven't asked for a condition on lighting, but if you've got... Yeah, but equally they did say in one of the last email they sent, I think they did say about wanting, did you want a bit more of a formal response? And so I think that we have to pick up that slack a little bit there, and I'm sure it isn't something that they wouldn't want. So, you know, I would like that on there, because I do think, especially with the car park, you could end up having some quite bright lighting around that, and I think we definitely want to keep it so it is the neighbours aren't disturbed by really bright lights shining into their houses. Thank you. Yeah, it can be added. Yeah, thanks.
I'm sure I've got a seconder. Thank you.
We have Councillor Gale, followed by Councillor Hegan.
Thank you, Chair. Talking about routes to and from for heavy vehicles, we've recently come across one for Chewsley Fruit Farm, where we managed to get something put together so that the heavy goods vehicles don't use Church Road. They come in off of the A3 and coming off of the A3100. I wondered if we could look at that for the construction traffic to come through the village. It would help enormously. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think at this stage it's difficult to agree what the routing would be. I think they'd have to propose it, and we'd have to consult the highway authority on it. I'm just mindful of being proportionate. Thank you, Chair.
I was just going to say, if we could just look at the Chewsley Lane that was agreed recently, where the traffic goes through the village. If that could be mapped, it would be good.
Councillor Hegan.
I just wanted to add my two penneth from Holloway's perspective of Chewsley Lane, because we do get problems in going through Busbridge, where people unfamiliar with the area think that they can access Chewsley Lane from the Holloway end, and that is a disaster. And we've had quite a lot of congestion with heavy vehicles having to reverse because they can't go down that hill. So if we are able to do anything at all, could it also make clear that it isn't suitable to access up Shackstead Lane and along Tuesley Lane? Or they do it.
Thank you, Chair. Because we would need to consult the Highway Authority on what would be appropriate. We can widen the condition, which is condition 14, by adding details of the routes to be agreed. But I think it would be, without being able to consult the Highway Authority on whether their proposed route is acceptable, I think it would be too narrow to then say at the moment it has to be a specific route, but we can consult on the route with the Highway Authority. Thank you.
So I think everybody's spoken who wants to speak. Oh, Councillor Reid.
I'd like to know from the people on the rostra, on the dais, would you tell me where I can see, or where will considerate building and considerate behaviour for neighbours would be put? Because I can't see it at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I confirm there was an informative requested for the considerate construction scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a few amended conditions, which I'm sure you've all listened to and you've agreed as we've gone through them. So with those amended conditions and the other conditions, there is a recommendation that this should be granted. So would all in favour of granting this, please show. I think that is unanimous, yes?
Yeah, motion is carried.
Yep. Thank you very much. And there are no applications not subject to public speaking. So that is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask, Chairman, do we know yet whether it's likely to be a meeting in April? If we don't know, we don't know, but probably will. Okay, no, that's fine. I'll pencil it in amongst other things. We have to do some of us in April. Duty calls, absolutely. We've got plenty of town council flipping meetings.